Previously on NBA Insider. Chris Wayne Jackson was born in Gulfport, Mississippi on March 9, 1969. In middle school, Chris missed the 4th grade and would later on be placed in special education classes. It was also around this time that he was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, a condition that was ignored until he was 17 years old. He played for Gulfport High School, where he was named the Mississippi Player of the Year in 1987 and the Gatorade Mississippi State Player of the Year. Following his senior year, he chose to attend Louisiana State University to play college basketball for the Tigers. In 1990, he was selected in the first round of the NBA draft as the Denver Nuggets took him 3rd overall after trading their 2 first-round picks. In 1991, while still playing in the NBA, Chris Jackson decided to convert to the religion of Islam. Then in 1993, at the age of 24, he decided to change his name to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, an Arabic name which roughly translates to elegant and most kind. March 10th, 1996 marked the beginning of the end of his NBA career. On this night, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was preparing for an upcoming game. He went through warm-ups, returned to the locker room to dress for the game, and walked out with his teammates for the normal pre-game rituals. However, the point guard decided that he would not stand and salute the United States flag during the national anthem before the game. Back in March of 1996, 2 days after the game in which he never stood for the national anthem and before the Nuggets home game against the Orlando Magic, NBA Commissioner David Stern suspended Abdul-Rauf indefinitely.
The National Basketball Association on Tuesday indefinitely suspended Denver Nuggets star Mahmoud Rauf for refusing to follow a rule that players, coaches, and trainers must stand respectfully during the playing of the national anthem before games. Rauf, a Muslim, says, quote, "My beliefs are more important than anything. If I have to give up basketball, I will." As he sees the U.S. flag as a symbol of oppression and tyranny. He
sat out one game, losing a paycheck worth $31,700, which was a decent portion of his $2.9 million salary. Finally, after that one-game suspension, both him and the league officials came to an agreement. He agreed to stand during the national anthem if he would be allowed to bow his head and close his eyes to pray. And so the following game, that's exactly what he did. However, it was too late. The damage had already been done. Just 2 seasons later, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was out of the NBA. But how? Well, his protest against the standing for the national anthem caused the NBA to tell the Denver franchise to handle the situation discreetly. Therefore, the following summer, the Denver Nuggets decided it would be appropriate to trade the 27-year-old to the Sacramento Kings for a scrub who ended up retiring at the end of the season. It was obvious that they did it for this reason and this reason alone. Because who in their right mind would take a 2nd-round pick who was averaging 6.8 points per game for a player who was averaging nearly 20 points per game the following season? Nobody. That's who. Regardless of this, Mahmoud's final year in Sacramento was the worst. He shot just 16% from behind the arc and went from being a starter in his first year to DNP coach's decision and injuries in his second. After a year in the Turkish league, he caught one final chance with the Vancouver Grizzlies in 2000, where he averaged 6.5 points and shot 28% from 3 in 41 games. Once that season ended, so did his NBA career. And although many people showed him hate following this incident, there were others who did the opposite. By suspending Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, many people believe that the NBA had disrespected his religious beliefs.
Muslims have different beliefs and they have different anthems. I mean, and you just have to respect that.
He didn't just start doing it. I mean, he's been a Muslim for 3 years, and I've seen him not honor the national anthem for 2 years, so I don't know how they evolved around, suspending him when they did.
I don't necessarily agree with what he's saying, but I respect his freedom to express himself.
The league had nothing to do with that. That was way too tough.
As ironic as it is, even the NBA Players Union said that they supported his decision. In regards to the incident, they said, "Our union respects the free expression rights of any individual, and NBA players are no different. We support Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf and we support the American flag, which symbolizes Mahmoud's right to take precisely the action he is taking." As if all of that support wasn't enough, even NBA legend Michael Jordan spoke on Rauf and the incident, saying, "He's a good kid. He's got his beliefs and I may not agree with them, but I give him all the credit for trying to stick with them." But fans, the NBA, and even those in charge of his franchise were uncomfortable with what he did. Ultimately, Abdul-Rauf decided that standing during the national anthem and saluting the American flag wasn't a part of his beliefs. His willingness to stay strong for what he believed in eventually helped lead to an early exit from the NBA and played a role in our faded memory of his game. And although many have forgotten about him as a player, they also forgot who he was as a person. Mahmoud Abdul Abdul-Rauf was an influential individual who was motivated by his growing appreciation of Malcolm X. He would go from city to city during Denver Nuggets road trips to speak to men who had issues with incarceration, fatherhood, and drugs, and give them his advice and moral support. In his own way, he was a revolutionary American. He took advantage of the freedoms of the First Amendment. He challenged America's economic belief system. He focused on issues such as drugs, education, and more that many of today's leaders are too scared to address. All of this gone in a matter of seconds. After his NBA career ended, he briefly returned to his hometown of Gulfport, where he had plans to build a mosque, but it was burned to the ground in 2001 in what was considered to be a hate crime. He then traveled the world playing in foreign leagues over the years, making stops in Europe and Japan. By 2007, he was living outside of Atlanta, Georgia, raising 5 kids with his divorced wife, and still receiving hate mail about that fateful night. For over 20 years, the moment in which he refused to stand for the national anthem has defined the former point guard's legacy. However, it was another player who as of recently put his name back in the headlines. The few people who remember Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's career compare him to Golden State Warriors superstar Stephen Curry. His quick release, shooting ability, and handles were all top of the line, all similar to that of Curry's. However, while Stephen Curry has become the crucial point of his team's offense, Abdul-Rauf was always placed in a smaller role with the Denver Nuggets, where players like Dikembe Mutombo were given much more of the spotlight. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was a 35% career three-point shooter, which hardly brings him into the same conversation as Stephen Curry. But to others like Dale Brown, who coached Abdul-Rauf at Louisiana State University nearly 30 years ago, it made perfect sense. Brown spoke on the comparison of the two players by saying, "I said it a year or two ago. Chris Jackson was Steph Curry before Steph Curry was Steph Curry." However, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf never quite developed into the same force that Stephen Curry has become today. He never made more than 39% of his three-pointers in any single season. Stephen Curry, on the other hand, has a 44% career percentage from the three and has never made less than 42% in a season. At the same time, in Mahmoud's defense, the NCAA didn't adopt the three-point line until the season before he arrived at LSU, so he was not exposed to it until later on in his career. Despite this, he would still shoot from long range in any given game. As a matter of fact, it was his long range shooting that made him somewhat of a revolutionary college basketball player. Now, I'm not saying all of this as a way of telling you guys that he was better than Stephen Curry, but just as a way of saying that the two players have an extremely similar style in the way that they play. The quick release, the ability to create open spaces, the graceful way in which they score even when they aren't open, and the sense that no team is safe when they are on the court. Both of these players have such a unique gameplay style that not many other players compare to. Bryant Stith, a teammate who played with Abdul-Rauf in Denver and has known him since they were high school seniors, claims that Mahmoud was the closest thing to Stephen Curry. Although the modern NBA has created a true value of the three-pointer and allows guards like Curry so much space to create and improvise offenses with their scoring ability, he says, if Mahmoud had the freedom to shoot and score in an offense that was so wide open, I don't know if he would be able to put up the same type of numbers Steph Curry is putting up now, but he'd probably be the closest person that could do those things. The numbers he'd have put up would have been unbelievable. Beyond the ability to shoot the basketball outstandingly, there is so much other aspects of their gameplay style that both players share. Just like Stephen Curry, Mahmoud was able to get free anytime he wanted, had a great floater, and was just as quick. Many NBA players, coaches, execs, analysts, and fans have struggled to find the proper comparison for Stephen Curry for the longest time, but NBA coach Phil Jackson himself recently sent out a tweet saying, "Never seen anything like Stephen Curry? Remind you of Chris Jackson / Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who had a short but brilliant run in the NBA?" Now, many people were outraged by this tweet from Phil Jackson, considering the fact that Curry was without a doubt the better of the two. However, he would go on to reply to the hatred by saying, "How does commenting on Rauf mean I'm comparing him to Curry? Remind? Yes. Quick release? Crossover? Yup. MVP? Nope. Get a grip." Basically, what both me and Phil Jackson are trying to say by comparing the two players is that although Stephen Curry is without a doubt the better player of the two, there is a clear similarity in how both individuals performed on the basketball court. The idea that Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was an older, less skilled, yet more vintage version of Stephen Curry is not crazy at all. And for anyone who is ready to argue this, here is what Stephen Curry himself said about Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. "I actually went and watched YouTube highlights of Abdul-Rauf at LSU. I really never watched his game before. it helped my basketball knowledge a little bit. There are some similarities for sure. I watched one game. He had 40 something on the road. He had that thrust in transition, pulling up from 3, getting in the paint. I didn't know much about his game. I knew who he was. I watched 3 YouTube videos and kept it moving. Stephen Curry said he saw some resemblance between his game and Abdul-Rauf's after Phil Jackson's tweets sent him in search of some highlights. Overall, this is how I view the comparison between both of these players. Stephen Curry has more range, is a better shooter, and is probably a better passer as well. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, on the other hand, had an arguably quicker release and an outstanding leaping ability. I personally can never say that he was better than Stephen Curry for many reasons. For starters, he never even averaged more than 20 points, never even shot 50% from the field, and most importantly when it comes to this argument, he never even shot equal to or over 40% from the 3. For Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's best season of his career, he was 19-7-3. Steph Curry's, on the other hand, was 37-5. However, at the same time, I must admit that the league was much harder to play in back in the day. There were still certain rules such as hand checking that were still present during Abdul-Rauf's era that are not around in today's NBA. Even though Curry is better than Rauf, it's still pretty crazy to see what he did in an era where illegal defense was still allowed. But yeah, in the end, Stephen Curry was better without a doubt. Aside from all of this, the fact of the matter is that Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's best years were taken away from him after the scandal. And to be honest, it's unfortunate. He could have potentially become a player who would have went down as one of the greatest point guards in NBA history and even possibly as a Hall of Famer. This was the same guy who had a near perfect 32-point performance against Michael Jordan's 72-win Bulls. The same guy who completely destroyed John Stockton and the Utah Jazz with a 51-point performance. The same guy who finished his NBA career as technically the greatest free throw shooter of all time. Sharif Nasser, Abdul-Rauf's former agent, said that he was once hanging out with Suns superstar Kevin Johnson in the mid-90s when Johnson told him, "There are 3 players in the NBA that you cannot guard. They are unguardable. It doesn't matter what you do, you can't do anything. We have defensive schemes to try and prevent them from doing certain things, but they cannot be stopped." Those 3 players were Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and of course Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Instead of appreciating all of these amazing comments and accomplishments he has acquired throughout his time in the NBA, many people remember Mahmoud as the African-American Muslim who refused to stand for the playing of the national anthem at the start of a game. To many people, there's nothing more memorable from Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. It's almost like he wasn't even there as a player, like he disappeared from the face of the NBA. However, I strongly recommend that you guys do yourselves a favor and research him. If you watch the videos that highlight his scoring ability, immaculate skills, handle and quickness, then you may begin to see why some people have suggested he was Stephen Curry before Stephen Curry. Today, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf is a real estate agent who also does public speaking and provides basketball clinics. He trains basketball players ranging from junior high school up to the NBA. Even to this day, he is still demonstrating the speed and skills that led him to a career in the NBA. And he still has a shooting touch as well. As a matter of fact, he's in such good shape that he could still play in today's NBA. But that's not happening anytime soon. However, it was recently announced that he will be playing in Allen Iverson's new 3-on-3 league. Overall, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf had a solid NBA career. He was a fast player, had an amazing shot, a super quick release, killer crossover, amazing ball fake, and much more. And sure, he wasn't better than Stephen Curry, but he did play extremely similar to him. And although he was not the most perfect person and made mistakes, he was still a humble individual who just happened to be doing what was viewed as a wrong thing at the wrong time. Had he done the exact same thing as he did back then today, chances are he would have been praised the same way Colin Kaepernick was when he refused to stand for the national anthem. Still, if you never saw him play, you will never truly understand how great of a player he really was. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf no longer lives in the consciousness of most sports fans, mostly because of his decision to sit during the singing of the national anthem. Had all of this never took place, who knows how long he would have stayed in the league and the amount of damage he could have done. Now, we'll never know. And that concludes the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I introduced you guys to some new NBA knowledge that you were not familiar with before. I try my best in each video to teach you guys about the side of the NBA that many people ignore. Most of you guys are familiar with my NBA stories, comparisons, breakdowns, what ifs, and much more. So if you guys are returning subscribers, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to watch my video. And for those of you who are new, welcome to NBA Insider. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I strongly encourage all of you guys to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications to be the first to watch my videos when they drop. As always, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If I made any mistakes or missed anything that you felt should have been included, please let me know. Also, if you have any recommendations for future videos such as interesting stories or topics like this, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. As always, thanks for watching NBA Insider.